Good morning, everyone. So here we are again with the next installment in our little production diary, which will show you some aspects and some details of the creation process of our upcoming second album, which will be hopefully out sometime in 2024. And today I want to have a look with you at a little section which is part of the longest track on the album, which I already told you a bit about last time. This time I want to get a bit into detail with writing orchestral stuff or building up an orchestral section. And what we're looking here at is again section with a pretty stupid name. It's entitled Stairway to Acoustic Heaven because the whole thing started with some strummed acoustic guitars, and I knew that I wanted it to be spherical and expansive and with a lot of orchestral volume to build up towards the finale, which will follow afterwards. So, a couple of things first about the way that I write orchestral stuff. There are quite a few roads which I might go for. The first would be me sitting in front of the piano, standing behind me and trying things out and moving back and forth between my DAW and the piano and write down what I came up with on the piano. If that's an appropriate way of doing it. Sometimes, of course, I'm practicing on the piano and then moving over and record stuff into my DAW using my funny little X-key, what's it called? 38, I think, because it's having 38 keys and it's a very slim and nonetheless quite responsive MIDI keyboard, which I use for dialing in stuff. And that's the second option. And the third one sometimes is I'm using my jam stick, which is looking like this. It's a lovely headless instrument that I bought a couple of years ago, and I replaced the original pickups because they sounded pretty terrible, and I put in some bare knuckle pickups, silos, which are the signature pickups of Rabea Massad, if I recall correctly, and those are very versatile pickups and make this guitar a pretty good travel guitar because it's very lightweighted, it's small, and I can plug it in anywhere and have a pretty decent sound. But the most important thing for recording orchestral stuff is this little fellow over here, which is a very high quality MIDI pickup, which is a pretty rare thing on a guitar, and I've been trying out lots of stuff throughout the years, and this is the most responsive and most intuitive way of getting musical information from a string instrument into my DAW. So especially when I'm writing stuff which would be played on string instruments like violins or a double bass, I mostly do it on this guitar. So let's have a look at the section itself. As I said, it started with some mellow acoustic guitars, and I want to build up the whole thing step by step because what you're going to hear on the record will be very dense and there will be many things going on at the same time, and it's easy to miss all those details which I put so much thought into. And you can see the orchestral stuff is starting here and it's building up, and there's instruments coming in and going out again. There is stuff being added and filling up and increasing the tension until in the end we'll transition into the finale. So we start with the simple stuff, which is just a double-tracked acoustic guitar and an electric bass, and it goes like this. So, and after I recorded and wrote down that initial idea, I wondered what might be a fitting sound to accompany these instruments, and I came up with a lovely mellow Rhodes piano. And these three instruments together form like the foundation of the whole section. So when I add the Rhodes, it goes like this. And on that foundation, the orchestral instruments will start to enter one after the other, or sometimes two or three at the same time. And the first thing that is going to sneak in is a lonely viola, which in itself sounds like this. And together with the instruments that were already playing before, it sounds like this. So you can hear it adds a quite different dimension to what was happening before, and it's filling up the whole scenery a little bit and goes into a different register, but it's still just one lonely instrument, and we're gonna expand on that with the next two instruments entering, which are a transverse flute and a bassoon, and they go like this. Everything together. And you can hear, even though there is not much panning going on and the instruments are not put in the right spots of the sonic panorama, you can hear that there are, or at least I try to, fill up a different space in the whole scenery. And the next things that are being added are more string instruments, so that the viola is not that alone in the room anymore. And there will be a cello and two violins, pretty quickly followed by an oboe and a double bass, and then a clarinet, and then the brass is entering, tuba, trombones, horns, finally some trumpets, and close to the end we have some pizzicato violins. So one after the other. Next we'll add the cello and the violin, and I will show you these ones isolated first. So you hear sometimes it's making the room much fuller with sound, and sometimes there is like fragments coming in and fading out again. So when I isolate them, they sometimes feel like there's stuff missing, but you have to keep in mind that there's much more stuff going on. So let's put together everything we had so far and see how those cello and violin are coming in and what they're adding. And you hear especially the violins, which add a lot of body to the whole thing. And then we've got like the string foundation established, and on top of that, more stuff can happen. And the next things that will enter will be the oboe and the violin, which isolated sound like this. Again, it's just a few notes, it's little fragments from the melody which I introduced before, but they add another dimension to the whole arrangement. Now we've got like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 instruments going on, and the initial electric bass, which was like the lowest foundation of the whole thing, got drowned a little bit. So I thought it would be a good idea to add a double bass to accompany the electric bass. Isolated, it goes like this. So you hear it's quite a new musical color being added to the whole thing. And you can hear when stuff is building up and the double bass enters, how everything gets even more majestic and fuller. And I like that approach of adding something on top, adding something at the bottom, adding something in between, and that way play around with the listener's attention. And sometimes the whole thing is getting fuller at the low end and more emotional, and sometimes I'm using particular instruments to lead the listener's attention back to the melodies, which is what I did with the clarinet next, which again is just a little melodic fragment sounding like this. And it's just moving around certain aspects of the harmonies and is emphasizing them. With the clarinet added, it goes like this. So admittedly, this is a pretty subtle dimension, but that's sometimes what's most appropriate. Just add tiny little spots of color here and there to emphasize certain aspects of the harmonies or of the melody. And then we already have a pretty broad and voluminous setting established. And of course, I want to get a bit more crazy and make this even more heroic. And what you go for in those situations is brass. And so the next thing which will join in will be the trombones and the tuba, which always add another lovely color and dimension to the whole thing. And we'll listen to them isolated first. And so they're beautifully acting together with the double bass. Of course, there is no EQing going on, and so several of the instruments are canceling out each other. So you gotta use a bit of your imagination, and you will hopefully hear these details way more clearly when the whole thing is going to be mixed. And then we're coming to the final stages. We have those two brass instruments added, and there's room for more, so we'll throw in some horns and finally some trumpets, and just listen to them. So that's the orchestral stuff, that's the build-up of the section. And as a final step for today, I want to show you the whole section put together. Sounds like this. So that's it for today. A little breakdown of an orchestral section, and I can't wait how everything is going to sound when we finally mixed it, when we put everything in the right spots and did the EQing and put some effects on it, and hopefully release it pretty soon for you to enjoy it. So thanks again for watching. Thanks again for being a part of the whole Sad Serenity journey, and see you soon.